Hello and welcome. From this video, we are going to start DynamoDB.
Hello folks, there is one important message for you. We recently completed RDS and we believe in hands-on experience. To do all the practicals of RDS live, we arrange one live session with our expert Bhavesh Attara this Sunday. It means 15th December 2024 at 11 am IST. To join RDS Super Lab, link in the description. For any queries, you can contact me on my number. Keep learning.
As I explained you in previous video that in AWS they have 1 million plus DynamoDB customer. So definitely when you will go for the interview, you will get questions related to DynamoDB for sure. And do you know what is the most common question? They are always starting with what is DynamoDB? And what is the answer for this? DynamoDB is NoSQL database. Now, you will stuck with the next question. Okay? DynamoDB is NoSQL database. You are absolutely right. Now tell me, what are the differences between SQL database and NoSQL database? What are the differences between RDS and DynamoDB? What are the differences between relational database and non-relational database? Now, there is a chance that anyone can stuck here. Why? Because while they are learning, they are only concentrating on this particular one line that, okay, DynamoDB is NoSQL database. That's all. I don't want you to face this type of difficulties. So, I'm going to explain you all these questions right now in this video. So, let's start. As always, we are going to start with definition. And here, the first line. Amazon DynamoDB is NoSQL non-relational database service by AWS. I'm going to explain you both of these things, like what is NoSQL, what is non-relational. Okay, so don't worry about this right now. Just understand the definition. The first line is saying that DynamoDB is non-relational and NoSQL database. It built for a fast storage and retrieval even with high traffic. I can tell you that, DynamoDB is faster than RDS databases. In RDS, if I'm talking about RDS, you can say that it is a MySQL or a PostgreSQL, okay, all this. So here, the first point that you need to consider is DynamoDB is faster than all the RDS databases. Now, do not consider Aurora in this. Okay. DynamoDB automatically scale to handle growing data and workload. I'm also going to explain you scaling in the DynamoDB. And then the last one, it perfect for real-time application like gaming, IoT, and e-commerce. When you want speed, you can use DynamoDB. So it is way more faster than the normal SQL database. Okay. Now, let's start with what is NoSQL. First of all, just understand the meaning of SQL. Let's say that if you are using any RDS database like MySQL. Now you have your database. Inside your database, you have table. Now, if you want to add new records into the table, if you want to retrieve the records from the table, if you want to update the records in the table, you are actually using SQL, structured query language, right? Now, here we are saying that DynamoDB is actually NoSQL. Means what? The first thing is NoSQL means not only SQL. It means this indicates that these databases are not limited to SQL-like query language and schemas. It is not limited to, right? So it is having more tools than the SQL as well. Unlike traditional databases, it does not use fixed tables and can store data in a simple format like key value pairs and documents. Right now, just remember that when we are using normal database management system like SQL database, they have data stored in table format. Here we don't have fixed table. We are storing this data into the key value pairs. Okay. Now, I know that there is a confusion for this line in your mind, but I'm going to explain you this line again when I am going to talk about point number 4. So I will come back over here. Don't worry. So I'm going to close this, but not going to close this one. It works well for a large and changing data like gaming, social media, and IoT. You want faster speed and your data is changing too frequently. In this case, NoSQL would be your choice, and DynamoDB is actually NoSQL database. So Amazon DynamoDB is an example offering quick performance and automatic scaling. What is the meaning of automatic scaling? Means it supports horizontal scaling. Means if it is required to provide performance, it can add servers automatically, which is going to increase the performance. So yeah, it is having auto scaling. Now, let's talk about what is non-relational. Non-relational database store data without traditional row and column of relational database. If you look at this, third line is exactly matching. They allow flexible schemas, meaning each record can have different structure that I am going to explain you. This makes ideal for unstructured and semi-structured data like user-generated content and logs. So you don't have fixed data. You are going to store any kind of data inside the database. Non-relational database also scale horizontally by adding more server, making them suitable for high-growth application. If you look at this, it is the same line like auto-scaling. So that's why, people always combining these two things together like NoSQL, non-relational database. It is the same kind of terminology with little differences between them. So now it is always good idea to understand this line so you will get better understanding about it. Okay. So here I have differences between SQL versus NoSQL, right? So let's start step by step. Here I have 4 differences between them, and the first line will provide you clear understanding. Now look at the data structure that we have for relational. Data is stored in a table and row column. Required fixed schema, meaning structured must be defined before storing the data, and this is how we are actually going to store data inside SQL database. Before we are going to add these records of Rahul and Ima, we have to have table or with the predefined schema. So if you look at this table, they have predefined schema like we have member ID, we have name, and we have email ID. So it is fixed now that in this particular table, because they have defined schema, you can add only 3 details about your members. You can add member ID, you can add name, and you can add emails. Now what if I am saying that I have one special user named Amit and I want to add Amit's phone number as well? Is it possible over here? No, you cannot add this because the defined schema, defined table is fixed. When we are talking about SQL, they have fixed data structure. Now let's talk about NoSQL. Data is stored in key value pairs, documents, graphs, and column. In NoSQL, we have subtypes of NoSQL database as well. Some databases stores data into the key value pairs. Some stores in the document format, graphs, and columns. We'll talk about all of them, but right now we are concentrating on key value pairs because our topic is DynamoDB, which is storing data into the key value pair. So here I am giving you example of this. Schema is flexible, so you can store different type of data without predefined structure. And here it is an example. Now you can compare them. Let's do this. See. This is how MySQL storing data. And here NoSQL database like DynamoDB storing this data. Same data we have. We have member ID. Here we have name, yes. Here we have email, yes. But these are in the key value pair. Now you can add new key and pair anytime. Let's say that if I want to add a record for Amit, and this time I'm saying that for Amit I want member ID, name, email, and I also want phone number. I can add this because here we don't have this schema defined. It is not mandatory for us to add only 3 key value pairs, you can add fourth one as well, because here we don't have defined structure, okay, or defined schema. So I hope you understand this. Now what I am doing, I am going to open line number 3, so it will provide you better understanding, right? Unlike traditional database, it does not use fixed table. This is a fixed table, okay, and can store the data in simple format like key value pair. This is the same line. Now you got understanding about this. And also non-relational database store data without traditional row and column in the relational. This is traditional row and column system. Here we are storing this data into the key value pair. So I hope you got idea about what I am saying, right? Now we understood this data structure. Now let's talk about point number 2, which is known as data representation. Data is stored in multiple tables and relations are enforced using foreign keys. Now here I have one example as well, like how relational database store the data. It is actually storing data into the multiple tables, and we have to create multiple tables. Why? Because they have defined schema. Okay, so we cannot store different types of records into the same database. Now here look at this. Here we have member table. Here we have books table. And the third table we have is a borrowed book table. Now if you want to understand the foreign key structure, you can easily understand this. Let's say that if I am asking you one question over here, okay, right now, can you tell me Rahul borrowed which book from this table? You can easily connect this foreign keys with each other and you can find it out. So let's say that here you will find out that, okay, this is member ID 201. 201 means this one means they are talking about Rahul. Then you can find out that, okay, Rahul borrowed this particular book with the book ID 101. This is 101, and you can say that you can win. So by verifying this table, you can say that there you have member Rahul. Rahul actually borrowed book. You can win from Shiv Khera, right? So this is how tables, and they have relation between each other. Okay. Now, if I am going to talk about data representation over here, okay, in NoSQL, here the same data would work into single table for non-relational database, and look at this, the same thing, but it is in the different format. Okay. In non-relational database, all the data to a member is stored in a single table under one row or entry. And look at this, you have same entry. Here you can say that, okay, we have member Rahul. Then we have book borrow option over there. You can find out that, okay, this is a book of Rahul borrowed by him. Here we have Ima, and this is a book name and everything. So here in one table, you have everything. You do not need to create multiple table. Again, I want to tell you that if you want to create multiple table, you can also create this into the non-relational or NoSQL database. It is possible, but in normal circumstances, in general, companies are using single table. Okay, so again, I am telling you, you can create multiple table, but we don't want to discuss about it right now because I don't want to make it very complex for you. Okay, so yeah, this is how two different type of system working. Then we have scalability. Scale vertically, going more power to a single server. Example, upgrading the server CPU, RAM and storage. Let's say that if I have my database and I want to scale it, I am thinking that it is working really slow. So in SQL, we can increase capacity by adding more CPU. Let's say that I have four CPU, I'm just going to add another 4. So now I have 8 CPU. From 16 GB, I have 32 GB. So I just increase this. If you have RDS database, you have facility by adding read replicas, okay, which is going to increase the performance as well. But in general, if we are talking about on-premises, in normally SQL database, we have vertical scaling, means you can increase capacity by adding more resources like RAM and CPU. If I am talking about NoSQL database, it scale horizontally, means you can add more power by adding new servers, right? As I explained you earlier about Aurora. Aurora is serverless, okay? So it will scale automatically by adding more server inside this. This is the same facility we have for NoSQL database, and DynamoDB is also kind of serverless auto scale enable database management system. And now use cases. Best for application needing structured data, consistency and complex querying, banking application, payment processing and accounting software. Best for application needing flexibility, speed and scalability. An example is real-time app, IoT data, gaming, leaderboards and big data. Okay, so these are the use case. Now, I just explain you everything. Now, I know that what is your mindset right now, what you are thinking right now. Maybe you are thinking that, okay, NoSQL database is really good and it is way better than the SQL database. It means in the near future, companies are going to remove all the relational database and they will replace it with the NoSQL database, right? If you are thinking like this, it's actually wrong. Both are having their own plus point, minus point and specific use case. So you cannot replace SQL database with NoSQL database. If you have requirement of SQL database, you have to use SQL database. If you have requirement of NoSQL database, you have to use NoSQL database. There is a specific use cases for them, right? It means if you have like a racing car, you can ride this on a racing track. You cannot ride this into the normal roads of our city, right? Even though it is, having high accelerator speed of 300 km per hour, but it is not applicable in the city. So how I can explain you this? So I thought I want to give you real world use cases and how these two databases can empower application. So if you have any misunderstanding, it will be removed. So we decided that I'm going to give you live example of India's best innovation UPI application. I will explain you UPI and how UPI is going to use SQL database and NoSQL database to provide you seamless payment experience. But yes, for this you have to watch next video. Thank you very much. See you in the next video. Have a nice day. Goodbye. And I'm giving you promise that if you have any confusion related to this, it will be removed from next video. Yeah. Goodbye.